Hi, and thank you for visiting my channel. For more information, kindly subscribe and follow. Now let's get started. Jacob Fatu is the man who many have their eyes on as the future of the bloodline in WWE, and for a good reason. In an intense promo after the opening segment of SmackDown, he left the OTC Roman Reigns speechless. The opening segment of SmackDown saw Sami Zayn run things back with the original bloodline, reminiscing over their days together in 2022. He offered his help in their battle against Solo Sikoa's bloodline, but under the condition that Reigns apologized to JUSO. Reigns refused to do that and Sami walked away, leaving things hanging. Reigns would then call out Solo Sikoa. After Sami walked away, Jacob Fatu cut an incredible promo directed at Roman Reigns, saying, "It's been so long since you've been the tribal chief, so let me lace you up real quick. You see, there's the tribal chief and then there's everybody else. See, Solo is our tribal chief, so that makes you just like everybody else, back of the line with it. Now Solo don't jump when you tell him to jump and he sure ain't moving when you say move. Hell, Solo moves on his own time and Solo will come out there when he damn well pleases. So, at the end of the day, you will acknowledge that." This left the OTC speechless. You can watch the video of Jacob Fatu's promo below. This was another incredible display from Jacob Fatu, who has quickly risen to become the star player of the bloodline. There have been a few teases of him versus Roman Reigns, but it feels too quick to have that match happen. Backstage, JUSO and Roman Reigns had a tense moment, with Jay standing up to the OTC and telling him that he had only one pass to disrespect him, and after that, he would simply walk away. Even Jimmy USO visibly disapproved of Reigns' ways, knowing how much they need the help. The SmackDown arena was buzzing with anticipation as fans prepared for yet another explosive episode of WWE's Friday Night SmackDown. The air was thick with excitement, especially after the shocking events of the past few weeks, with Roman Reigns' dominance starting to feel like it might be challenged. The night had already been packed with thrilling matches, but nothing could have prepared the WWE Universe for what happened during the main event. A hush fell over the crowd as the lights dimmed and the familiar, eerie tones of Roman Reigns' entrance music began to echo through the arena. The tribal chief, carrying the weight of the undisputed WWE Universal Championship, made his way to the ring, flanked by his loyal cousins, the Usos. Roman had been in control of SmackDown for over 3 years, but lately, there was something different about him. The tension between him and his family was palpable, and whispers about challengers rising to challenge the self-proclaimed head of the table had been growing louder. Reigns took his time as he slowly paced around the ring, glaring at the camera and soaking in the atmosphere. But tonight wasn't just about him. As he grabbed a microphone, the crowd expected another speech about dominance, legacy, and bloodline. Instead, Roman's eyes narrowed as the lights flickered once again, and the unmistakable music of Jacob Fatu filled the arena. Fatu, the Samoan powerhouse known for his explosive in-ring style, had been making waves in the independent scene for years. He was a member of the Anoa'i family, a bloodline that held immense respect within the wrestling world. Fans had speculated about when Jacob Fatu would make his long-awaited WWE debut, but no one had anticipated it would happen tonight, especially not in the manner that it did. Fatu walked confidently to the ring, his gaze locked on Roman Reigns. He stood in the center, towering over the tribal chief, a physical presence that was impossible to ignore. The atmosphere was electric as the two Samoans faced off in the ring, their eyes locked in a silent standoff that could only be described as the calm before the storm. For a moment, the crowd was silent, unsure of what was going to happen next. Roman's face betrayed no emotion, but there was a flicker of surprise in his eyes. He had seen many challengers rise to the occasion, but this one was different. This was someone who shared his bloodline, someone who carried the same heritage, but with a fire that Reigns hadn't seen before. Jacob Fatu took the microphone from Roman's hand without hesitation. The tribal chief was taken aback, momentarily speechless, as Fatu's presence commanded the entire arena's attention. "You've had your time, Roman," Jacob began, his voice booming through the microphone. "But I'm not here to bow down to you. I'm here to take what's mine, what's always been mine. The bloodline isn't just about you. It's about all of us. And I'm not gonna sit back and watch you destroy what our family built just so you can hold on to that belt. The crowd erupted into applause, the energy shifting as Jacob's words resonated with them. Reigns, typically the master of the microphone, found himself at a loss for words. He was no longer in control of the narrative, and for the first time in years, Roman Reigns was speechless in the ring. Jacob continued, his voice unwavering, filled with passion and defiance. I don't care about your legacy, Roman. I don't care about your fancy titles. What I care about is family, and you've forgotten what it means to lead the way. You've turned your back on the very people who've helped you get where you are. But I'm not here to talk. I'm here to prove it. The arena erupted with chants of Fatu. Fatu, as the fans rallied behind him. Roman's face twisted in frustration, his eyes narrowing as he stepped forward, his jaw clenched. But Jacob didn't back down. He stood tall, unyielding, as he continued his promo. You're the head of the table? Fine. But there's one thing you're forgetting, every head has a challenger. And it's time for you to face the reality that I'm the one who's gonna take you down, Roman. You've been running SmackDown for too long, and it's time for someone else to take that spot. Roman Reigns, the man who had silenced so many opponents with his words and his dominance, now found himself on the defensive. His usual confidence was slipping as he stared down Jacob Fatu, realizing that the Samoan powerhouse before him wasn't just a threat in the ring, he was a threat to the very foundation of the bloodline. Jacob Fatu's promo had left the WWE Universe on the edge of their seats. But what left Roman Reigns speechless was the truth behind Jacob's words. For all his power and control, Reigns had forgotten the significance of the bloodline, the importance of respect within their family. Jacob Fatu wasn't here to follow in his footsteps, he was here to forge his own path, and he wasn't afraid of challenging the so-called head of the table. Roman stood silently, contemplating his next move. He raised the microphone to his lips, but his words were caught in his throat. For the first time in years, Roman Reigns, the tribal chief, was at a loss. The tension in the arena was palpable. Fans were chanting, booing, and eagerly awaiting what would happen next. Finally, Roman broke the silence with a low growl, his voice dripping with disdain. You think you can just walk in here and challenge me? Roman sneered. You think you can just take what I've worked for? You're nothing but a child trying to play in the big leagues. But Jacob Fatu wasn't intimidated. He stepped closer to Roman, his eyes burning with determination. I'm not a child, Roman. I'm a man, and I'm coming for everything you have. And with that, Jacob dropped the mic, leaving Roman Reigns in the ring, speechless and stunned. As Jacob Fatu made his way to the back, the crowd erupted in cheers. The stage had been set for a new chapter in the Bloodline saga, one where the future of the Samoan dynasty wasn't solely in the hands of Roman Reigns. The question now was simple: could Roman Reigns hold on to his throne, or had Jacob Fatu just laid the foundation for a new era of domination? One thing was certain, the battle for the bloodline had just begun. New Wiseman to make WWE return after a decade and help solo Sikoa at Survivor Series 2024? Major Swerve explored WWE superstar Solo Sikoa might be on the lookout for a new Wiseman for his bloodline. The self-proclaimed tribal chief kicked Paul Heyman out of the group in June after he refused to acknowledge Sikoa as the tribal chief. Now, Sikoa might have found a new Wiseman in Armando Estrada. The 45-year-old isn't new to the job and is a former heel manager of a reputed late Samoan wrestler, Umaga. Solo knows that Paul Heyman will join Roman Reigns and the Usos when he returns. Getting in Armando Estrada also looks probable, as he recently signed a 5-year Legends deal with WWE. The deal is for special appearances and merchandising, including video games and action figures. Armando Estrada gained fame in WWE when he was in charge of Umaga from 2006 to 2007. His role was of a Cuban businessman who would control his client and get him to take down other superstars from the roster. Estrada's character was taken well by the fans, as they booed for him. In 2007, Estrada was announced as the general manager of the ECW brand. He wrestled, too, but mainly as a jobber. He left the promotion in November 2008 and returned to the company briefly in 2010. However, his first appearance came in 2011 as a manager of former WWE superstar Tyson Kidd. That was a brief venture for Estrada, and he was released from his contract again in July 2012. If he now makes a special appearance, which likely looks like the case to be, it would be after nearly 12 years. Armando Estrada's return will likely be before the Survivor Series, War Games, which is 3 weeks away. This will also not be Estrada's first interaction with the Bloodline members, as he previously managed Jacob Fatu at All-American Wrestling in 2019. The former ECW manager can bring another Anoa'i wrestler, Hikuleo, as his debut has been highly rumored for quite some time. The introduction of a newer member in Solo's group will make the Bloodline storyline more exciting, as it would then prompt Roman Reigns to bring the fifth member to his team, who could be Zilla Fatu. That will lead to a perfect 5-on-5 contest at Survivor Series, War Games. WWE superstar Sami Zayn ditched Solo Sikoa on joining Bloodline 2.0. Sami Zayn proved his loyalty to Reigns and the Usos when he banged Solo Sikoa in the closing moments of SmackDown this week. Solo had told Reigns that Zayn was his fifth member of the stable and had called him out to the ring. Meanwhile, Solo and his men also attacked Reigns. When Zayn was inside the ring, Solo had by then held Reigns. He asked Zayn to launch a hell of a kick at the former WWE champion. However, Zayn pulled a shocker at the last moment, kicking Solo instead. Later, a choked-up Reigns looked at Zayn, and then the Usos had also come inside the ring. The four of them lifted their hands, signifying the revival of the OG Bloodline. Survivor Series 2024 was shaping up to be one of the most unpredictable pay-per-views in WWE history. The stakes were high, and the fans were buzzing with excitement about the upcoming matches. Roman Reigns, the dominant tribal chief, had been sidelined for several months due to personal matters, and the Bloodline had splintered in his absence. Solo Sikoa, the enforcer of the faction, was trying to hold the fort, but the cracks were starting to show. Jey Uso had defected to Raw, leaving a massive void in the faction. Even though Sikoa had shown moments of immense strength, it was clear that he needed someone to help guide him through this challenging time. In the weeks leading up to Survivor Series, Sikoa had been a force on SmackDown. He was destroying everyone in his path, dominating singles matches, and sending a clear message to anyone who dared challenge the Bloodline. But despite his raw power and aggression, something was missing. The Bloodline, once unified under Roman Reigns' iron fist, was beginning to look like a fractured empire. Then, a shocking announcement came. A mysterious video package aired on SmackDown, and it sent ripples through the WWE universe. The video was cryptic, filled with images of a man draped in shadow, surrounded by whispers of something old yet reborn. The man's voice echoed ominously through the arena, speaking of loyalty, power, and family. A new Wiseman is on his way, and the Bloodline will rise again. The video ended with the final words, "Survivor Series will be the rebirth of the Bloodline." The fans were left speculating. Could this mean the return of Paul Heyman, who had once stood as Roman Reigns' Wiseman? Or was it someone else, someone from the past, who would guide Solo Sikoa in his time of need? The speculation was endless, and the suspense only grew as Survivor Series approached. When the night finally arrived, the energy inside the arena was electric. Survivor Series 2024 was set to be a night of massive implications. In the opening match, Solo Sikoa was defending his honor and his claim as the rightful leader of the Bloodline against a formidable challenger, Bobby Lashley. The match had already been hyped up to be a brutal showdown, but no one could predict the shocking turn that was about to unfold. The match began with both men exchanging power moves, each trying to assert dominance. Sikoa's Samoan drop shook the ring, but Lashley countered with a spinebuster that had the fans on the edge of their seats. As the match went on, it became clear that both men were at their limits. Just as it seemed like Solo might secure the victory, the lights in the arena suddenly went out. The crowd gasped in confusion. The arena fell silent, with only the sound of murmurs filling the space. Then, a familiar melody played through the speakers, *The Wise Man theme, the signature entrance music of none other than The Rock. The fans exploded into cheers, thinking they were about to witness a legend return. But the lights remained dim, and the silhouette that emerged wasn't The Rock at all. It was a man in a tailored suit, standing tall with an air of authority. As the spotlight finally illuminated him, the crowd went into a frenzy. It wasn't Paul Heyman, nor was it a familiar face from the past. It was a brand new Wiseman, one who had been absent from WWE television for over a decade, the Enforcer, the man who had once been Roman Reigns' mentor and advisor, Savio Vega. For those who had been fans of WWE in the 90s, Savio Vega was no stranger. His partnership with the likes of Razor Ramon and the Nation of Domination had made him a fixture in the WWE landscape. But his connection to the Reigns family went beyond just being a colleague. Savio had trained Roman in the early days, helping shape him into the powerhouse we know today. For over a decade, however, Savio Vega had stepped away from the limelight, focusing on personal matters and outside ventures. His return to WWE was unexpected, yet it made sense. The Bloodline needed someone who could guide Solo Sikoa and help him take control of the faction. As the crowd processed the shocking revelation, Vega made his way to the ring, stepping over the ropes with confidence. He locked eyes with Solo Sikoa, who looked confused at first. Vega raised his hand, signaling for Sikoa to stop fighting and listen. A tense moment hung in the air before Solo dropped his fist and stood face to face with his new Wiseman. Vega spoke softly but firmly into the mic. "You've been carrying the weight of the Bloodline alone, and I've been watching from the shadows. The Bloodline is more than just power, Solo. It's about family. And this family is about to be restored to its true glory." Solo, still hesitant, nodded slowly as if acknowledging the truth in Vega's words. This was the turning point. Vega's presence was a game-changer, and it was clear that Solo was not alone anymore. With his mentor back in his corner, the Bloodline was reborn, ready to reign supreme once again. The Swerve, a new era begins as Vega and Solo Sikoa exchanged a knowing look. The atmosphere in the arena shifted. The fans were eagerly waiting to see what would happen next, unsure of whether they had just witnessed the reformation of the Bloodline or the beginning of a new faction altogether. The tension continued to build, but the swerve came when Roman Reigns' theme suddenly blasted through the speakers. The crowd erupted. Reigns' entrance was legendary, and it seemed like his return was imminent. However, when the tribal chief stepped onto the stage, something was different. He wasn't alone. By his side stood the Usos, Jay and Jimmy, who had long been at odds with Roman. But instead of facing off with Vega and Sikoa, Roman stepped forward, raised his microphone, and declared, "The Bloodline is about to evolve. What you saw tonight isn't just about power. It's about legacy. And Savio, welcome back to the family." In a shocking twist, it was revealed that Savio Vega was not just there to guide Solo Sikoa, he had returned to be a major part of the Bloodline's future. The old tensions between Roman and the Usos were pushed aside in favor of a united front with the new Wiseman at the helm. Solo Sikoa, who had been struggling for control, was now positioned as the enforcer once again, but under the watchful eye of Vega, a true mastermind. The fans stood in awe as the newly reformed Bloodline raised their fists in unison, signaling the beginning of a new chapter in WWE history. The faction, stronger and more united than ever, was set to dominate the industry once again. Survivor Series 2024 had truly been the night of shocking returns, unexpected alliances, and a complete reshaping of the WWE landscape. The WWE Universe was left wondering just how far the influence of the new Wiseman, Savio Vega, would extend, and whether the Bloodline would truly reach its peak under his guidance. Roman Reigns' reunion with Sami Zayn on SmackDown had one big problem, according to ex-WWE employee, exclusive, former WWE head writer Vince Russo spoke about Roman Reigns. The Usos and Sami Zayn standing tall at the end of SmackDown. The four men closed the show by beating down the Bloodline. During the final segment of the show, Roman Reigns walked out alone to confront Solo Sikoa and his henchmen as they were hosting the Undisputed Tribal Chief Acknowledgement Ceremony. The faction started a beatdown on the original Tribal Chief as the Usos rushed out to help. Soon, Sami Zayn also joined the fray and they managed to clear the ring. During this week's Brodown podcast, Russo mentioned that the whole reunion was too predictable. He felt fans wanted to see the four men get on the same page and WWE was right in giving them that. However, the veteran wanted the writing team to be more creative about putting Roman Reigns, the Usos, and Sami together. This is exactly what the fans wanted. They gave them exactly what they wanted. The writing was on the wall. You knew it was going to come down to this. You know, like I said, at the top of the show, sometimes you gotta give the fans what they want. I just wish it wouldn't have been as predictable as it was. From 25:00 onwards, with Survivor Series just around the corner, the original Bloodline finally seems to have resolved their differences. It will be interesting to see if they enter into a War Games match against Solo and his associates at the Premium Live event later this month. SmackDown's iconic return of Sami Zayn to Roman Reigns' fold after months of tension and animosity was a moment WWE fans had been clamoring for. It seemed like the perfect narrative closure after Zayn's betrayal of Reigns and the Bloodline earlier in the year. The emotional weight behind the reunion was palpable, and the crowd responded with an eruption of cheers, solidifying the importance of the moment. However, according to an exclusive interview with a former WWE employee who worked closely with the talent roster, this moment may not have been as flawless as it appeared on television. The employee, who requested to remain anonymous, shed light on what they believed to be a significant flaw in the way this reunion was executed. The storyline between Roman Reigns and Sami Zayn had already gone through a roller coaster of emotions. Zayn, once seen as the loyal honorary Uso, became a fan favorite as he slowly began to question his position in the Bloodline. After months of servitude and camaraderie with the family, his loyalty faltered, and he turned on Roman Reigns during the Royal Rumble, helping Kevin Owens against Reigns. That moment was seismic for fans, who watched in awe as Zayn broke free from the shackles of the Bloodline, forging his own path. Fast forward to SmackDown, where the storyline had been slowly building toward a reunion. Roman Reigns, the Tribal Chief, had grown more isolated in recent months. Uso's departure, Solo Sikoa's blind loyalty, and the steady departure of everyone who once stood by him made Reigns' need for Sami Zayn even greater. Zayn had built up a level of trust with Reigns over time, even if it was rooted in manipulation. The potential reunion seemed like the perfect solution to Roman's ongoing problems. But there was one issue that not even the most dedicated fans or WWE officials anticipated: the execution of this dramatic return didn't land quite as expected, according to The Insider. The ex-WWE employee explained that while the story of Zayn's reunion with Reigns had great potential, it was marred by a lack of emotional continuity. The biggest issue with the reunion, from a creative standpoint, was that the emotional weight of Sami Zayn's betrayal was still very fresh in the minds of fans, but WWE tried to gloss over it too quickly, the former employee stated. They went on to describe how the production team worked hard to capture the spectacle of Zayn walking back to the Bloodline side, but the reality of their relationship wasn't truly explored. While fans were undoubtedly excited to see Zayn and Reigns back on the same team, the rawness of Zayn's betrayal didn't feel adequately addressed. Reigns, who had been seething with anger toward Zayn for months, simply didn't show the type of emotional investment that one would expect from such a deep personal wound. The ex-employee further revealed that the reunion could have been an excellent opportunity for character development, especially for Roman Reigns. Roman's character, the Tribal Chief, has always been one of control, power, and dominance. But his reactions to Sami's betrayal and eventual return were underdeveloped, they said. He didn't fully address what Sami's betrayal did to him emotionally. A lot of that was left to be inferred by the audience, but it would have been far more compelling to see Reigns confront Zayn with a level of vulnerability or anger that truly matched what had occurred. One possible direction that WWE could have explored, according to the insider, was to have Reigns display some level of conflicted emotion, torn between accepting Zayn back and maintaining his facade of control. Instead, the reunion felt rushed, with Zayn's return being presented almost as a necessity rather than a deeply emotional and hard-won moment. For Zayn, the emotional stakes were equally unclear. The ex-WWE employee pointed out that Zayn's motivation for returning to Reigns' side was not sufficiently clarified. Sami Zayn is not someone who just switches sides easily. His entire arc in WWE over the last few years has been about him standing up for himself and breaking free from toxic situations, they said. The suddenness of his return to Reigns almost felt too convenient. There was no real build-up to explain why he would choose now to join the bloodline again, especially after everything that had happened between him and Roman. The insider argued that Zayn's decision could have been motivated by a genuine desire to reclaim his former glory within the bloodline, perhaps seeing an opportunity to reassert his place in the faction that once embraced him. But this motivation needed to be addressed with more depth. WWE could have done more to show that Zayn's return was driven by something other than desperation or convenience. This would have added an extra layer of intrigue to his character and made the reunion feel more meaningful. According to the ex-WWE employee, another challenge with the reunion was the pacing and logistical decisions made by the writers. The entire SmackDown episode felt like it was moving too quickly, and the reunion didn't have the time it needed to breathe, they revealed. The emotional beats of the segment were rushed. There wasn't enough time given to let the fans really take in the magnitude of Sami's return. Instead, it felt like a quick, transactional moment to set up future storylines. The insider felt that there was a missed opportunity to extend the story over a couple of weeks, allowing fans to build anticipation. Instead, the reunion felt like a one-off segment without the proper time to explore the layers of conflict that had been established. Despite these flaws, the former employee also noted that the reunion opened up many possibilities for the future of Roman Reigns and Sami Zayn's relationship. There's still a lot of potential in this story, they said. But for it to truly work, WWE needs to give more time to the emotional aftermath of Sami's return. Reigns needs to fully embrace his role as the manipulative leader, and Sami needs to be given a more complex reason for rejoining. If done right, this could still be one of the most compelling stories in recent memory. In the end, while Roman Reigns' reunion with Sami Zayn on SmackDown was undoubtedly a powerful moment, it didn't quite hit the emotional crescendo it could have. The rushed pacing, the lack of deep character development, and missed opportunities for both Reigns and Zayn to explore their feelings made the reunion fall flat. Whether WWE chooses to revisit these emotional conflicts or move forward with their storylines, it's clear that this reunion could have been handled with a little more care to truly live up to the weight of the past. WWE Hall of Famer speaks out on the Jacob Fatu controversy. "I just don't see him doing that." Exclusive. WWE star Jacob Fatu recently faced some social media backlash owing to some allegations against him. However, Hall of Famer Teddy Long believes the allegations are not true. Fatu was allegedly paid to appear at a wrestling event organized by Jake's Network of Hope, a non-profit organization, in 2023. However, he apparently no-showed the event and failed to return the paid amount of $2,633. It was later noted that the amount had been paid back to the organization, with Jacob apologizing. Before it was known that the matter had been resolved, many had been quick to condemn Jacob Fatu. Teddy Long, on Sportskeeda's The Wrestling Time Machine, hosted by Mac Davis, was, however, quite strongly in favor of the WWE star. "With Jacob Fatu, man, I mean golly, one of the nicest guys you could ever meet. You know that's just, he's not like that. He is no guy that would, try to stiff none of the promoters. I just don't see him doing that. So I think this may be some misunderstanding here." 516 onwards, what did the nonprofit organization say about the WWE star returning the amount? After it was found out that Jacob had already paid back the amount he had been given, Jake's Network of Hope issued a statement acknowledging their mistake. In the statement, they made it clear that the WWE star had reached out to them, and the ensuing dialogue had led to a proper resolution. The statement noted, "In May, Jacob Fatu reached out with a heartfelt apology, initiating a meaningful dialogue that allowed us to work together with all parties involved to find solutions and fully resolve the matter. This event aimed to confront the challenging realities of poverty and the immense obstacles to overcoming it. While not everything unfolded perfectly, we are grateful for the awareness raised around diaper need and the substantial costs of providing essential products to families. For now, fans will have to stay tuned to see what is next for Jacob Fatu in WWE." In an exclusive interview with WWE Hall of Famer and former champion Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, the wrestling legend spoke out about the ongoing controversy surrounding Jacob Fatu, the rising star in the wrestling world who has recently found himself embroiled in a scandal. The debate centers around rumors that Fatu, known for his strength and agility, was allegedly involved in an altercation backstage at a recent event that has sent shockwaves through the wrestling community. Fatu, a member of the renowned Anoa'i family and a powerhouse talent, has garnered a reputation as one of the most promising young stars in the wrestling business. But recent reports suggest that he may have been involved in an incident that could tarnish his burgeoning career. Steamboat, who has watched the rise of Fatu closely, sat down with us to offer his thoughts on the situation, share his perspective on Fatu's character, and provide insight into the potential impact this controversy may have on his career. The allegations first surfaced following a post-event altercation between Fatu and several backstage personnel, with conflicting reports fueling speculation. Some sources claimed that Fatu was involved in a heated confrontation with fellow talent, while others suggested that the situation was blown out of proportion. In the wake of these rumors, the wrestling world has been buzzing, with fans and critics alike questioning Fatu's future. "I just don't see him doing that," Steamboat said, shaking his head as he reflected on the controversy. Jacob Fatu is a talented young man who has been in this business long enough to know what's expected of him. When you've grown up in the Anoa'i family, you're taught the value of respect, both inside and outside the ring. That's one of the reasons he's been able to stay focused and achieve what he has so far. Steamboat, a multi-time champion with an illustrious career in the ring, emphasized that the Anoa'i family has long been respected in the wrestling world for their professionalism and commitment to the business. From the legendary Wild Samoans to Roman Reigns, the Anoa'i lineage has produced some of the most influential figures in wrestling history. Steamboat pointed out that Fatu's connection to this legacy meant that he was instilled with the same values of discipline, respect, and family loyalty that have helped elevate the entire bloodline of wrestlers. "I've had the privilege of working with a lot of great talents in my career, and Jacob's no different," Steamboat continued. "He's got the athleticism, the in-ring IQ, and most importantly, the humility to be a future star. He's a respectful young man. That's why I'm having a hard time believing these rumors. It just doesn't add up." The controversy began when reports surfaced that Fatu had been involved in a verbal altercation with another wrestler after a disagreement during the show's production. Some sources claimed that tensions had been high backstage, but that the situation was quickly de-escalated. Fatu himself has remained relatively tight-lipped about the incident, leaving fans and wrestling insiders to speculate on what truly happened. "I understand why people are talking about it," Steamboat said. "But it's important to remember that, in this business, there are often misunderstandings, and sometimes things get blown out of proportion. When you have so many egos and different personalities in one place, tempers can flare, but it doesn't mean it's the end of the world. This kind of thing happens more often than people realize." Steamboat, known for his calming presence and legendary ability to smooth over difficult situations in the ring, believes that Fatu's actions, if any, were likely an isolated incident. "I've seen wrestlers go through their ups and downs. I've been in this industry long enough to know that nobody's perfect. But what matters is how you handle yourself afterward," Steamboat said with conviction. "If Jacob's involved in something, I have faith that he'll address it, learn from it, and move forward. That's what makes a true professional." Fatu's rapid rise in the wrestling world has been one of the most talked about stories in recent years. Known for his high-flying moves and dominant performances, he has carved out a niche for himself in promotions like MLW and, more recently, WWE. His family legacy, combined with his undeniable talent, has placed a target on his back, with fans and industry veterans alike keeping a close eye on his every move. When asked about how the controversy could impact Fatu's future, Steamboat was optimistic. Wrestling is a long-term game. You can't base someone's entire career off of one incident, especially if it's something that doesn't seem to be in line with their character, Steamboat said. Jacob is smart, and he's got the right people around him. If this thing is just a misunderstanding, it will blow over. But if there's something more to it, he'll need to address it head-on and show the world that he's learned from it. Steamboat also shared his thoughts on the larger implications of this controversy for the wrestling business. The wrestling world is always looking for the next big thing, and Fatu has been pegged as one of those future stars. A slip-up like this can certainly have an impact, but the most important thing is how you bounce back, Steamboat explained. I've seen guys go through much worse and come out stronger for it. It's about how you handle adversity that defines you in this business. For Fatu, this controversy could serve as a defining moment in his career, a test of both his character and his ability to weather the storm. While the speculation surrounding the incident continues to swirl, Steamboat is resolute in his belief that Fatu's future remains bright. Jacob Fatu has a lot of potential, Steamboat said with a smile. I don't see this controversy defining him. It's just another obstacle, like so many others in this business. What matters is how he responds, and I have no doubt he'll come out of this stronger and wiser. As the wrestling world waits for more information and Fatu remains under the microscope, one thing is clear: his legacy is far from determined by this incident alone. Whether this controversy proves to be a momentary blip or a defining chapter in his career, Fatu's journey is just beginning. And, according to Ricky Steamboat, this is a talent that is destined for greatness, no matter the bumps along the way. 37-year-old megastar to debut in WWE and help Roman Reigns against the Bloodline? Possible Twist explored the latest episode of WWE Friday Night SmackDown saw the original Bloodline reunite, and Roman Reigns appeared ready for war. The closing segment of the episode saw the original tribal chief, the Usos, and Sami Zayn doing the one's gesture, creating an extremely nostalgic moment. Despite a considerable threat from the OG Bloodline, Solo Sikoa looked calm, which hinted that he might have more backup. However, last night, the original tribal chief seemingly found a man who could be an ideal backup in case the Street Champ adds another member to his stable. Reigning UFC light heavyweight champion Alex Pereira attended last night's SmackDown and had a backstage interaction with Reigns. A viral backstage video showed Roman Reigns giving Alex Pereira his OTC hoodie, and in return, the 37-year-old UFC star gave the former undisputed WWE champion his custom t-shirt. Both megastars seemingly liked each other's gifts as they shook hands and embraced each other. Reigns and Pereira share many similarities. Both are at the peak of their respective careers and represent their respective tribes. Solo Sikoa dropped a subtle hint at Bad Blood that The Rock was on his side. To counter this, Roman Reigns could reach out to Alex Pereira for help, and the UFC star could later debut on WWE TV to confront the Bloodline. Alex is widely regarded as one of the most famous fighters in the Ultimate Fighting Championship. To garner more attention, the Triple H-led creative team could include Pereira in a segment. That said, the angle is speculative at this point. The Rock talks about his return to WWE TV at Bad Blood 2024. Since his shocking appearance at Bad Blood 2024, fans have been speculating about the final boss' next move. In a recent interaction with LA Bible, The Rock opened up about his return to WWE TV last month and vowed to make more appearances in the future. Any opportunity one can to go back and not only make appearances but help to expand the company, whether domestically or globally, I always go back. It's also part of my obligation that I happily do, he said. Meanwhile, it remains to be seen what the Triple H-led creative team has in store for the Bloodline saga in the coming weeks. In the world of WWE, everything is unpredictable. Storylines evolve, alliances shift, and superstars rise from obscurity to megastardom. But no one could have predicted the return of a 37-year-old megastar who would not only shake up WWE but also have a significant role in the most personal and brutal rivalry in the company's history, the saga of the Bloodline. This megastar, long considered retired or moving towards a new chapter of their career, would step into the ring not as a challenger to Roman Reigns, but as an ally, someone who could potentially break the Bloodline from within, setting the stage for an unexpected twist. The arrival, the unlikely savior of the night, was electric, with fans on the edge of their seats, eagerly awaiting the culmination of Roman Reigns' dominance. As the reigning Universal Champion, Reigns had kept his hold on WWE in a vice grip, with the Bloodline, his faction consisting of his cousins, Jimmy and Jey Uso, and Solo Sikoa, serving as his enforcers. Together, they had decimated opposition, crushed any challengers, and kept Roman's reign intact for what seemed like an eternity. But cracks were beginning to show. Jey Uso had already betrayed Roman at WWE SummerSlam, and there were whispers about Solo Sikoa's dissatisfaction with being the enforcer, always in Roman's shadow. The Bloodline was fractured, and Roman knew it. He had to act fast to solidify his control. Roman's plan to silence his enemies, including his own family members, had been flawless. That was until a surprise video package played on the Titantron during a routine match on WWE SmackDown. The audience fell silent as a familiar face appeared, an image of a 37-year-old megastar, the architect Seth Rollins. The crowd erupted in a mixture of shock, disbelief, and excitement. Rollins, who had been mostly absent from WWE since a brief return at the Royal Rumble, now stood before them, looking every bit as dangerous as ever. Rollins was a former world champion, known for his high-flying, explosive style and his sharp mind. He was also notorious for his unpredictable nature, and his most recent absence had left fans speculating about his future. Little did they know, he had been quietly plotting his return to WWE for months, and now he had his eyes set on Roman Reigns. The twist: Reigns' biggest threat, Rollins, had always been a master of mind games. In the past, he had tricked his way into major title matches and manipulated his way into becoming a fan favorite or a hated villain, depending on the storyline. But his return to WWE wasn't just about facing off against Roman, it was about creating chaos within the Bloodline itself. Seth Rollins had always understood that to defeat an empire, you must break its foundations. "I'm not here to challenge you, Roman. I'm here to take everything you've built and burn it to the ground," Rollins declared in his first promo upon his return, addressing Reigns directly. The crowd buzzed with anticipation, as Rollins had always been one to make bold declarations, but this was different. Roman Reigns' empire was a machine, but Rollins wasn't about to walk in as just another challenger. He was the wrench in the gears, the unexpected variable. Rollins made it clear that his plan wasn't to just fight Roman. No, he had set his sights on the Bloodline, intending to manipulate the cracks within the faction, using his history with Jey Uso, his manipulation of Jimmy Uso, and his rapport with Solo Sikoa. The megastar wasn't just looking for a match, he was looking to destroy the very foundation of Roman Reigns' reign. At first, Roman was unfazed. He mocked Rollins, calling him a has-been and accusing him of being desperate for relevancy. But Rollins didn't back down. Instead, he began playing psychological warfare, using each member of the Bloodline against the other. He would target Jey Uso, reminding him of their past history, planting seeds of doubt about Roman's loyalty and leadership. He'd approach Jimmy Uso, calling on their shared past and the moments when Roman had manipulated him for the greater good of the Bloodline, creating tension within the faction. But the real twist came when Seth Rollins turned his attention to Solo Sikoa. The enforcer had always been loyal to Roman, but Rollins recognized something Roman did not. Solo Sikoa had his own ambitions. He wasn't just content being the background enforcer, executing orders from Roman. He wanted more. And Seth Rollins, with his sharp instincts, knew how to prey on that desire. The big twist: Rollins and Sikoa unite in a shocking turn of events. Solo Sikoa walked out to the ring during a pivotal moment in a heated family argument between Roman and the Usos. Roman was laying down the law, demanding loyalty, while Jey Uso was at his breaking point. Jimmy was conflicted, unsure where his loyalties lay, but Solo's entrance shifted the balance. Fans held their breath as Sikoa stood silently, watching the drama unfold. Then, in a move that stunned the WWE Universe, Solo Sikoa turned on Roman Reigns. He delivered a thunderous Samoan spike to his cousin, sending Roman crashing to the canvas. The arena erupted in pandemonium. Solo had just aligned himself with Seth Rollins, and for the first time in months, Roman Reigns was on the mat, vulnerable. But it wasn't just about Solo's betrayal. It was the way Rollins had manipulated him, making Solo believe that together they could achieve something greater than just being Roman's muscle. Rollins promised Solo a path to greatness, a chance to lead the bloodline with Rollins by his side, leaving Roman Reigns behind. This was the twist no one saw coming. Seth Rollins had just orchestrated the downfall of Roman Reigns' empire from within, using Solo as his ace in the hole. The fallout, Reigns versus Rollins, the ultimate showdown. Roman Reigns was now in a precarious position. With his empire crumbling and Solo Sikoa turning on him, the champion found himself without the enforcers he relied on. The bloodline had fractured, and its future was uncertain. Meanwhile, Rollins stood tall, a new faction emerging under his leadership, with Solo Sikoa as his enforcer and the Usos now on the fence, unsure where their loyalties should lie. This set the stage for one of the most explosive rivalries in WWE history. A clash of two of WWE's biggest megastars, one who had built an empire and the other who sought to burn it all down. With Seth Rollins now in the driver's seat, the landscape of WWE had changed forever. Roman Reigns, once untouchable, would now have to fight not just for his title, but for the very survival of his legacy. Would he be able to rebuild the bloodline, or would Seth Rollins and Solo Sikoa destroy him once and for all? The ultimate showdown was on the horizon, and no one knew how it would end, except for one thing: WWE would never be the same again. After Sami Zayn's appearance on this week's WWE SmackDown, the OG bloodline reunited for the first time since 2023. Taking to social media, Zayn broke his silence after getting back on the same page as Roman Reigns and the Usos. At the 2023 Royal Rumble Premium Live event, Sami Zayn parted ways with the bloodline after Reigns' successful title defense against Kevin Owens. Post-match, the OTC ordered Zayn to hit Owens with a steel chair. However, the former honorary Us refused and swung at the undisputed WWE Universal Champion instead. Taking to Instagram, Zayn broke his silence since SmackDown and posted a photo of the OG bloodline throwing up the ones during the closing moments of the show. He shared a blood drop emoji in reaction to his reunion with the group. The bloodline defeated the Usos and Reigns at the Crown Jewel Premium Live event. Following the faction's win, Solo Sikoa and his stablemates ambushed their adversaries, allowing Zayn to make his presence felt by coming to Jey's aid. Unfortunately, Zayn accidentally hit Reigns with the hell of a kick. This led to a huge argument between him and Jimmy Uso. Rikishi has admitted that he doesn't trust Sami Zayn. Rikishi claimed he doesn't trust Sami Zayn after he pledged his allegiance to the OG bloodline ahead of the Survivor Series War Games Premium Live event. Speaking on the Off the Top podcast, the real-life bloodline member stated that Zayn wasn't related to the family by blood. He also brought up his treatment by the OTC during his honorary Us days and doesn't trust him to stay loyal to Roman Reigns for long. I don't trust him. And so, at the end of the day, blood is always going to be thicker than water, he said. At the Bad Blood Premium Live event, Reigns teamed up with Cody Rhodes to defeat Solo Sikoa and Jacob Fatu. The OTC also reunited with his cousin, the returning Jimmy Uso. This led to the beginning of the OG Bloodline's reunion, with Jey Uso eventually returning to the fold as well. The buzz surrounding the WWE SmackDown arena was palpable as fans eagerly anticipated the aftermath of one of the most shocking moments in recent months. After weeks of speculation and teases, the OG bloodline, Roman Reigns, Jimmy USO, and Jey USO, had reunited in an explosive moment that sent shockwaves through the WWE universe. But as the dust settled and the final segment of SmackDown drew to a close, one crucial figure was conspicuously absent from the celebration: Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn, once known as the Honorary Uce, had forged an emotional and tumultuous journey alongside Roman Reigns and the Usos. From his humble beginnings as a mere outsider to being accepted into the fold of the most dominant faction in WWE history, Sami's bond with the Bloodline was unlike any other. His emotional betrayal of Kevin Owens at Elimination Chamber 2023, his standing with Roman Reigns, and his heartbreaking departure after the Royal Rumble match had all played out in front of millions. So, after the epic reunion of the Bloodline, everyone wanted to know, where was Sami Zayn? The cameras backstage panned to Sami's dressing room. The door was ajar, the lights dimmed, and the tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. Fans around the world were waiting for Sami's reaction. Would he be angry? Would he come out and confront Roman Reigns and the Usos? Or would he remain silent, reflecting on the last year of his life in WWE? Finally, Sami Zayn appeared on the screen. The camera zoomed in on him as he walked out from backstage, his trademark hoodie pulled low over his head, his face a mixture of contemplation and frustration. The crowd erupted as soon as they saw him, chanting his name in unison, **Sami. Sami. Sami. Sami raised a hand, signaling for the crowd to quiet down. The once energetic Sami Zayn had been replaced by a man who seemed to carry the weight of the world on his shoulders. His steps were slow, deliberate, as he made his way to the ring, microphone in hand. His eyes darted around the arena, soaking in the atmosphere, but his face betrayed none of the excitement that came with his usual high-energy entrances. Once he reached the center of the ring, Sami paused. The music that had once defined him now felt distant, almost foreign. He stood there for a moment, just taking it all in. The crowd continued to chant his name, but this time, there was a sense of concern in their voices. They didn't know what was coming next, and neither did Sami. Finally, after a long silence, Sami Zayn lifted the microphone to his lips. "Sami Zayn," he started, his voice steady but strained, "you've all been wondering, what's next for me, haven't you? What happens after everything that's gone down with the Bloodline, after everything I've done, and everything that's been done to me?" The crowd leaned in, hanging on his every word. There was a sense of collective anticipation, as if everyone knew that Sami's response would be just as monumental as his initial rise to prominence in the Bloodline. "For the longest time, I was blinded by the idea of family," Sami continued, his voice growing more introspective. "I wanted to be part of something bigger than myself. I thought that the Bloodline was going to be that for me. I thought that Roman Reigns, the Usos, they were my brothers, my family. And for a while, I believed that, wholeheartedly. But in the end, I was just another pawn in their game. Another tool for Roman Reigns to use and discard at his will." The crowd was still silent, listening intently. Fans had never heard Sami speak this way before. There was no sarcasm or humor in his tone, just raw honesty. He paced slowly in the ring, his eyes fixed ahead, lost in his thoughts. "When I stood by Roman's side, I wasn't just some follower, I was someone who genuinely believed in the Bloodline. I believed in the cause, I believed in Roman's vision. Hell, I believed in the bond we shared. But then came the betrayal. The moment I realized that none of this was ever going to be about me. It was never about Sami Zayn. It was about control. It was about power." Sami's expression grew darker, his fists clenched at his sides. "The Usos? The ones who I stood by, who I fought for, who I sacrificed everything for. They turned their backs on me when it mattered the most. Jimmy, you guys have always been more than brothers to me. But you know what? Tonight, when you two walked out with Roman, arm in arm, you showed your true colors. I was never part of the family. I was just another tool in Roman's hands." Sami stopped pacing and looked directly into the camera, his eyes filled with resolve. "But make no mistake, I'm done being anyone's tool." The crowd erupted into cheers. It was a statement that carried so much weight, so much meaning. The Sami Zayn they had watched over the past year wasn't the same Sami Zayn who had just spoken those words. This was a new Sami. One who had seen through the lies and deception and had chosen to take control of his own destiny. "I'm not just the guy who took the fall," Sami said, his voice growing louder with every word. "I'm not the guy who's going to stand in the background and watch the real bloodline bask in their glory. I am Sami Zayn, and I'm going to carve my own path from here on out." With that, Sami Zayn dropped the microphone to the canvas with a loud thud. He stood tall in the center of the ring, the arena once again erupting with applause and cheers. There was a mixture of emotions from the crowd, respect for his words, sorrow for what had been lost, but also a sense of excitement for the future. The Sami Zayn they had once known was gone, and in his place was a man who was ready to make his mark in WWE, regardless of who stood in his way. As the camera zoomed in on Sami's face, he looked over his shoulder, staring at the empty entrance ramp. The sound of the Bloodline's entrance theme echoed in his mind, but this time, it didn't hold any sway over him. Sami Zayn had broken free. The future was his. Solo Sikoa makes surprising statement about the OG Bloodline. Reveals why he created his own bloodline. Solo Sikoa has made a surprising claim regarding the OG Bloodline after the faction reunited on WWE SmackDown. The tribal chief also revealed why he created his version of the group. Following WrestleMania XL, Sikoa started creating his bloodline. He kicked Jimmy Uso out of the faction, replacing him with the debuting Tama Tonga. At Backlash France, Tonga Loa joined the stable before Jacob Fatu's surprise debut. The faction also removed Paul Heyman from its ranks after he refused to acknowledge Sikoa as his tribal chief. On SmackDown, Roman Reigns, Sami Zayn, and the Usos reunited for the first time in over a year. However, Sikoa made a surprising claim about the group, saying he knew everything about its members. "You messed up now. You messed up. I know everything about all four of you. I was in that bloodline. It's a reason why I got out and created my own bloodline." "War Games, see you soon," Sikoa said. Watch Sikoa's message to the OG bloodline below. Rikishi predicted Solo Sikoa to dethrone Cody Rhodes. Rikishi recently speculated that Solo Sikoa will dethrone Cody Rhodes after he pinned Roman Reigns at the 2024 Crown Jewel Premium Live event. On the Off the Top podcast, the real-life Bloodline member said the following about his son. "Solo's a made man. You know, for that to happen, there's definitely we see plans within this kid that, you know, what can be the next level for him. You know, we talked about does he need a belt? Well, after this 1, 2, 3 on Roman, I almost kinda, you know, I can see maybe Solo be the one to take it off of Cody. 'Cause I talked about maybe Roman will come back and take it off Cody, you know, but after seeing that, you beat the GOAT. You beat the GOAT and I believe it was 2 spikes, 2 or 3, whatever it was, right? But, you know, now, it's like, okay, you beat the GOAT, now you're considered the GOAT." Solo Sikoa will likely lead the bloodline to war at the upcoming Survivor Series Premium Live event. The match has yet to be made official by WWE, but Michael Cole teased it on the latest edition of SmackDown. It was a night of shock and awe when Solo Sikoa, the enforcer of the bloodline, took to the mic in front of a packed crowd at WWE SmackDown. His words would forever alter the trajectory of his career and leave fans and critics alike reeling in disbelief. For years, Solo had stood behind Roman Reigns, the undisputed leader of the bloodline, never once questioning the hierarchy or the role he played. But on this fateful night, the enforcer's loyalty was tested, and the shocking truth behind Solo's actions came to light. As the lights dimmed and the ominous beat of his entrance music rang through the arena, Solo made his way to the ring. His eyes narrowed as the audience erupted into cheers, knowing that this would be an announcement like no other. With a stoic expression on his face, Solo raised the microphone to his lips, pausing for dramatic effect. Everyone talks about the bloodline, he began, his voice cutting through the air like a blade. But they don't know the real story. Not the story you hear from Roman, or Jimmy, or Jay. They don't know what it's like to be me, to be caught in the shadows of greatness, waiting for the spotlight that never seemed to come. The crowd went silent. It was as though time itself had stopped. Solo Sikoa, the silent powerhouse of the bloodline, was speaking out in a way no one had ever seen before. Roman built his empire. He gathered the pieces around him. He surrounded himself with the best, with the blood, with the history. But the truth is, he built it all on his terms. He built it with power, with dominance. But there's one thing he left out: loyalty. There was a murmur in the crowd. Roman Reigns' reign as the head of the table had been virtually unchallenged for years. His control over the bloodline was absolute, and Solo had been his right-hand man, carrying out the enforcer's duties without question. But now, the tension that had been simmering beneath the surface seemed to have boiled over. The bloodline, once a symbol of unity and strength, was beginning to show signs of fracture. For years, Solo continued, I stood behind Roman, supported him in his quest for dominance. I watched as my brothers, Jimmy and Jay, played their parts as they fought for respect and recognition in Roman's world. But I realized something: I was never really seen. I was never the one calling the shots. I was the one doing the work. And Roman, he didn't see that. Solo's words hit hard. Fans had always seen him as the enforcer, the silent protector of the tribal chief, but in that moment, it was clear that Solo had his own ambitions, and they were far different from the ones Roman had set out for him. The crowd began to murmur, sensing that this was a pivotal moment in the history of the bloodline. I've always respected the bloodline, the history, the legacy, Solo said, his voice firm. But I've learned that respect can't be given if it's not earned. And so, I created my own bloodline. A bloodline of power. A bloodline of strength. A bloodline where loyalty is rewarded, not expected. The crowd gasped. The implication was undeniable. Solo wasn't just speaking about a new faction, he was declaring a revolution. He was challenging everything Roman had built, and he was doing it in the most surprising way imaginable. You all think Roman's the only one who can build an empire, Solo said, his gaze piercing through the camera lens as if speaking directly to Reigns. But what happens when the enforcer becomes the leader? What happens when the one who's been in the shadows decides to take control of the light? With those words, Solo dropped a bombshell. The idea of him forming his own faction, a new bloodline, sent shockwaves through the WWE universe. The prospect of a rift between Solo and Roman, once considered the most unshakable bond in all of WWE, now seemed like a real possibility. But Solo wasn't done. As the crowd continued to react to his shocking announcement, he added a final piece to the puzzle. I respect my family. I always will. But the truth is, I wasn't just following orders. I was waiting for the right moment to step up. And that moment is now. With a chilling grin, Solo dropped the mic and walked out of the ring, leaving the audience in stunned silence. His message had been clear. He had come to take control, to build his own legacy, and he would no longer live in the shadow of Roman Reigns or anyone else. The era of Solo Sikoa had begun, and it was a force to be reckoned with. Backstage, Roman Reigns was watching the segment unfold on a monitor. His eyes narrowed, his jaw clenched. He had never imagined that Solo, of all people, would turn against him. He had always believed that Solo was loyal, that he understood the importance of family above all else. But now, it seemed, that loyalty had been questioned. Roman's mind raced. Was Solo trying to undermine him? Was he trying to tear apart the bloodline from the inside? The implications of Solo's words were clear. If Solo was starting his own bloodline, then everything Roman had worked for could be at risk. But Roman wasn't one to take threats lying down. He had built his empire through power and manipulation, and he would do whatever it took to maintain his control. The challenge had been issued, and now it was time for Roman to respond. In the coming weeks, WWE fans would witness a battle for the soul of the bloodline. Would Roman Reigns remain the undisputed leader, or would Solo Sikoa's rise to power signal the end of an era? And who would align with Solo in his quest for domination? The answers were uncertain, but one thing was clear: Solo Sikoa was no longer content with being the enforcer. He was a leader in his own right, and he was determined to create a bloodline that would rival Roman Reigns' empire. The era of the original bloodline was over. A new chapter had begun, and Solo Sikoa was ready to prove that he was the future of the family, not just a part of its past.